What it do, baby? And welcome to Haydn Behind the Music Stand. I'm your host, Patty Ryan, and with me is Michael Turkell, who is a violin fellow at the new World Symphony based in Miami Beach, Florida. And we'll be talking about food in all its tasty glory. Welcome, Michael. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Patty. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I probably first heard you at San Francisco Conservatory of Music.
I am a walking noise complaint, as my Twitter bio reads. It's something I maybe discovered or was mentioned to me where it's like, dude, you're loud. Your voice cuts. I remember walking into the atrium of the San Francisco Conservatory building and being like, oh yeah, this is going to be a problem.
Well, and that atrium is also very open, spacious, and very beautiful. And I can just imagine the amplification of your voice in there and remember and call it well. But for me, it was never a problem. I was like, oh, yay, Michael's around,
And of course, there was always there was my voice or whatever. And there was also it'd always be Tuesday afternoon when VPL would get out and all of the singers left the recital hall or the concert hall or whatever. And they'd just be talking about what just happened and unpacking some performances that they liked or didn't like or whatever, but they're singers.
Right.
So
it's
just really loud.
The din
and then, of course, there were the guitarists who would just sit anywhere and practice because they could simply sit anywhere and practice. It was sort of this catch-22 of well, why don't you practice in a practice room? But then it's they're practicing in a practice room and it's just but I want to be practicing in that practice room. So why don't you just sit on a bench somewhere?
Right.
What a time. It's a unique place for sure.
It really is. So basically we met at that conservatory and a really unique time. And we were actually in different degrees though. I think we entered the school at the same time, but you were in an undergrad and I was starting my first master's there or something like that, right?
Right.
So,
2011. My God.
Oh my God.
That is, let me count, 10 years ago.
No. Why did you do that?
10 years ago.
That makes me feel super old. What have I done in 10 years?
We've improved.
That's true. That's true. We've improved.
I think we're happy with where we're at right now.
Are we better people than we were 10 years ago?
I don't know about that. I'm not going to answer that question. But, it's you ask yourself 10 years ago, it's where do you see yourself? And you tell that version of yourself then where you're at now. And I think at least for me, I would be pretty happy. I think your 2011 version of yourself would probably be pretty happy too.
I would be shut up, that's not happening kind of thing.
Right.
Are you kidding?
The journey's been great.
Yeah. Wow. What a weird way. I've never thought about it in the retrospectiveness of it. That question always gives me anxiety because I'm I don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. Why are you asking me now? But in retrospect, I'm oh, that's actually kind of interesting because it's there's so many.
Perspective's great.
Yeah. Or there's so many thoughts you had and you're certain of maybe back then, but they're so different after 10 years. But it's nice to look back and see how it unfolded. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm going on a complete tangent. I don't really have a specific funny memory of you it's not coming to me. It's more that I just really appreciated your presence around the conservatory because again, not only could I hear you before you showed up in a room, but I knew when you came into a room that you were going to light up the party and it was going to be fun and it was going to be really warm and inviting. I just always remember you being super laid back and really chill and really someone approachable.
Well, that's nice of you to say. Can I tell you how I remember you and a somewhat funny story?
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I remember getting to San Francisco and sort of feeling a little lost. And, I wasn't really sure. When I got to San Francisco Conservatory, I didn't know a single person who was going to be there except for maybe one or two acquaintances. I didn't know what to expect for the level. I just had no idea what to expect. And I remember one of the first things I noticed was how you and Cindy would get to school really, really early. And you would practice all the time and you guys were just intense and just setting a standard of a work ethic that it was attainable but also pretty inspiring. And I remember seeing that from you two and just being okay, I want to follow what they're doing. I want to try and touch that a little bit because that's going to yield some really good results. And it did, obviously. I saw that and I was just okay, that seems like a good thing to follow. But my funny story is about busking. And I loved that part of living in San Francisco and being at the conservatory, and you just don't get that at any other school. I'm sorry. If you're in New York, it's like there's all like the hurdles with the permits, plus there's just like so much saturation in classical music that it's just kind of like, you're a string quartet in a subway, you know, groundbreaking. So you had your cello quartet, and you wouldn't really busk often in the Castro, but you would do like the morning rush hour.
We tried, and those were some hard wake-up times.
But I'll never forget, I would say there were like 3, maybe 4 viable spots to use. There was Powell Station, the 2 sides of Powell Station, and then there was like maybe 1, maybe 2 parts of Montgomery Station, you know, like the thick financial and tourist districts of San Francisco. And I remember I wanted to do the morning busking, and that required that someone would have to like get up and get to a spot by like 6 or 6:30 in the morning or whatever. And I was like, all right, I'm on it. I have my coffee and my little traveler. I'm like ready to go or whatever. And I like pull out of the station, and I just like see you right there. You didn't even have to say anything. Like there was just like this look on your face where you're just like, yeah, I don't lose. Like, I don't lose. I'm here. I did this. I live just as far as you do. I live off the N, so like it's even worse for me. And guess what? I still win. So you were probably like making it rain that day, you know, and maybe I found a spot later that day. I don't really totally remember. But first of all, there's nothing worse than when you want to do the morning busking and you get up early and there's no spot. I mean, it's just like you end up at like Civic Center Station or something, which is, it's just not as good.
Yeah. It's a little sketchier too. Yeah. I'm so sorry. I feel so
No. Don't be sorry. I was just like, damn, that hustle, mad respect. You're also carrying like an instrument, you know, like a large
So
instrument.
are you. Okay.
And I mean, but like a large instrument. And you had like the music stand, and you had like music for 4 people that you had probably arranged yourself. And I was just like, I could have just woken up a half hour earlier. But no, she doesn't lose. She just doesn't lose.
Sorry.
No.
That took me down memory lane for sure. I do also agree with you. There's no other place like San Francisco to go busking, especially when you were in conservatory at SFCM, because it was such a wonderful way to make just some side money and really welcome people to the day. You know, even though, yes, we had to wake up at the, you know, crack of dawn to get there. The other benefit, though, was actually not only getting to play some of my arrangements and cello quartets and stuff, the appreciation that I would get from the people that were going to work was just so warm and welcoming, and I just felt like I was brightening their day. At least they heard some music first thing in the morning. I also remember there's this one moment that I was super tired to claim a spot, you know, in the busking area, and it was just me and Sarah Stone, previous guest of the podcast, and we were just doing some duets before our other quartet mates came, and I remember playing the most amazing A on my low C string ever in my life. I've never been able to produce that sound ever since. We both had to comment on it. I was like, wow, that was like one of the best notes you've ever made. I was like, I know, I can't do it again. Was it
like the acoustics or like the
crowd? It was like, I think total relaxation in my body because I was so exhausted. And it was just something about the way I curved that bow at that one moment. I just will never forget.
That reminds me of a really amazing story that Mark Sokol told once, like about the Concord Quartet was doing like some Beethoven recording, and they like couldn't get the articulation they wanted on a note. Or I think maybe it was your teacher. Yep. He couldn't get the articulation he wanted. And I guess at one point he just started like screaming, and the way Mark told it was amazing. And he was just like, yeah, you couldn't even hear it on the recording, but Norman just went, oh!
That's right. That was for Opus
certifiably 59. Insane.
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, well, those are all our mentors for sure. I mean,
huge.
Yeah. I mean, Mark Sokol, rest in peace. We love you so much, and we miss you every day. I miss him every day.
Every single day.
Yeah. But I believe that story was for Opus 59, number 2, Last Movement, getting that first sforzando in the lower voices. Wow.
Yeah. It's a surprising part.
Yeah.
But I'm just imagining with his voice and just like the conviction of, you couldn't even hear it in the recording, you know, but it wasn't the same without it. I was like, really? Oh God, I missed those coaching so much. I really,
I
really
know.
do.
He was the best chamber coach ever, most dedicated. He also was a really good cook. I don't know if you've ever experienced his cooking.
Never did. No.
Yeah, but he was a very good cook too. So it ties into our theme.
He was generous, and he was the most passionate
And he believed in
instructor,
every
pedagogue.
single
Yeah,
person. He
every single
believed
person.
anyone could do anything that he could tell you to. You know what I mean? Like, and that is so rare in any teacher. There's some teachers that just kind of like, oh, they're just never going to quite get it, you know? But no,
Yeah.
Mark was all about, I'm going to figure out a way for you to do the thing that I know you can do. It was.
He also executed. He never lost, you know? Like, I think that, and we've talked about this before, but that was like the trademark of the elite nature of San Francisco's chamber program was not how the best groups performed, but it was how the worst groups performed.
Yes.
I mean, the expectations were very clear. You're going to join this program, you're going to play in the chamber music seminar twice a semester, and you're going to perform the entire work at the end of the semester. And that to me sounded a pretty reasonable expectation or whatever. So to leave and go to other places where that wasn't the expectation and performing in a chamber music concert didn't feel like a big performance opportunity, that was very strange for me, and I'm sure for you as well.
Oh, it was a really hard transition. I know I've mentioned this class in the past, but that chamber music class that we had every Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m., it reminds me of a quote that I heard, and I'm obviously not going to quote it totally correctly right now, but it was a Maria Callas quote that she said that she learned the most from watching the worst people in a masterclass, if that makes sense. Not to
Absolutely.
like, and of course I was the worst in something at some point too, but I remember inhaling so much information, so much knowledge from watching progressively how my colleagues were improving week by week, and also the level of coaching that was spoken from all of my faculty, because it is literally like a masterclass, but a kind of family style masterclass where everyone is performing in front of everyone and the faculty critiques each group, you know, for 30 minutes or whatever. And yeah,
just
I mean,
the sense of community there too, it was really remarkable. And a group would perform, they would get through the movement or whatever, and there was that moment where 8 of the faculty members, they would just like look at each other, and it was sort of like, all right, anybody have anything to say? Like, who wants to say, you know? And it was always like, there were unexpected moments always with some of the faculty members, and so much of the time they always said just the right thing.
Yes. And then it was also fun to get moments when they would disagree. And it was interesting for me to watch how they would cooperate afterward, how they would negotiate. That to me, I think is like, you can't really teach that in a coaching. You have to just witness how that happens. And then that makes you knowledgeable of how to do that in a chamber music setting. Because obviously we're always going to run into disagreements anywhere. And obviously this is translatable in our modern life as well. Like, anyway, it was just a wonderful class. And the kingpin of that class was Mark Sokol, and we miss him terribly.
We miss that guy so much. One last thing I want to say about the chamber program, and maybe this sort of feels like any string quartet or like any chamber ensemble that you're trying to get together. It feels a lot like dating.
Oh.
I mean, you always had your group sort of figured out and people wanted to work with you. And for me, I always felt like it was kind of hard to get the right group together in school because there were certain people that were like, I want to work with this person, but I don't know if they want to work with me. So it's like, I wanted to ask them like, hey, you know, do you want to like read chamber music sometime? Or like, you know, do you want to like be in a group with me or something? And it really just, and then you'd read something together and either you'd just be like, so, you know, I think this went well. I think we should do this again. Or you just like ghost. Like I definitely did both of that where I was, and it really, chamber music in school feels a lot like dating. It was really uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, I certainly, I relate with that too. I had to do both as well of like, I really want to play with this person. Does this person want to play with me? Uh-oh.
Right.
How do I ask? Yeah, that kind of thing.
What if they think I suck? Do I suck? Like...
But they've played with this person in the past, so that means they want to, all that stuff.
Oh my God, yeah. It's like so much overthinking. And it's just like, why can't the faculty just match me up perfectly, you know? They won't do that. They're too busy already. Yeah, so. Oh, what a time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, total tangent. Can you tell me about your pets?
Oh, my little little Yorkies. Okay, so the Turkells are not a dog family, or were not a dog family until November of 2019, which feels like, 5 years ago. We always had a cat growing up. We had this great cat named Miss Vicky, and she was perfect. Like, she just didn't care. She passed away in 2011. She was wonderful, and we didn't have a pet in the house until my mom, she was driving to work, and it was like Venice Boulevard and Crenshaw Boulevard. Not the best neighborhood, and she sees this little dog crossing the street, and it's just like, oh my God, I have to help this dog. So she goes to check and see if there's a chip, like, is there anything? There's nothing. So she's like, this could be it. Dad's on board. So I was kind of nonplussed about this, honestly, because I was pretty like afraid of dogs for the most part, and for no apparent reason. So I came home for Thanksgiving. I met this dog, and I was like, oh, this dog's perfect. She's basically like a cat. She's not high maintenance or anything. So I go back to Miami, and then I come back to LA again for Christmas and the New Year and stuff like that. And the dog is noticeably larger than the last time I saw her, which was 3 weeks prior. I mentioned to my parents, what have you been feeding this dog? And they're like, I don't know. I mean, I didn't think we'd been feeding her that much more than normal. And I was like, okay, so she's gotten larger and you're not feeding her anything. So have you considered that she might be pregnant? Mm-hmm. And they're like, we hadn't considered that. No. Fast forward, she has 8 puppies.
Wow.
There are 9 dogs in the Turkell residence. So yeah, my parents were pretty in over their heads. Ultimately, like, 3 of the puppies didn't make it, which I think is that's sort of a common thing to happen, or at least that's our way of coping with it. And then, there were 5 puppies that remained. 3 went away, and my parents kept 2 of the puppies. One is like this little teddy bear Yorkie, and the other is like this all black Yorkie with like a little white goatee. And so their names are Courtney, Dovey, and Bo. And they're adorable. I miss them so much. What would we be without our pets, especially during this time? Like, I'm sure Sushi and you really hitting it off.
We have been snuggle buddies. Okay, Michael, you're ready for some Spitfire questions.
Let's do it.
Mozart or Beethoven?
Beethoven.
Shostakovich or Prokofiev?
Prokofiev.
Netflix or video games?
Netflix.
Basil or cilantro?
Ooh, that hurts in Californian. Still basil.
Oh, wow. Oh, I thought you were going to go cilantro.
Me too, but
Wow.
I think there was just like, there are more foods that I like basil in, It's like between like Thai food and Italian food. And like with Vietnamese food, there's a little bit of both.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Mexican food, it's like all cilantro and stuff like that. But, there's something about basil.
Okay, all right. Harry Potter, Star Wars, or Lord of the Rings?
Star Wars.
Symphony or chamber music?
Symphony.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Favorite practice room?
I really miss those practice rooms in San Francisco that would face west, overlooking Twin Peaks and like all of Hayes Valley and stuff like that.
Yes.
And you'd be able to like have like a first-hand look at like the microclimates of San Francisco, where it's like 80 degrees in Hayes Valley, but then like 65 degrees in like extremely dense fog across Twin Peaks or whatever. That was really cool.
What was also fun is you can see like students walking to Mandarin Village.
Exactly. Mandarin Villa.
I was like,
I think there's a new like Shanghaiese restaurant that took the space of Mandarin Villa.
I know Mandarin Villa is not there anymore, but
RIP.
Yeah, RIP is right. Oh, so many memories there. But you could see students like, oh, they're not practicing. Like they're not.
Yeah,
practicing.
Exactly. Or it's like, oh, what are those two doing together?
Right. Totally. Right. I see them walking around a lot. Like,
yeah.
Favorite professor shout out?
I mean, we've already given Mark Sokol a big old shout out, but also Jody and Bettina and Jennifer and Jean-Michel and just the whole 2011 to 2015 chamber music panel. Big shout out. I know I probably took years off of some of their lives, but they made my world a better place for it. Yeah, exactly. I don't think they realized just how much of a positive impact they had on all of us.
Yes.
But actually, they probably do.
So this is Jody Levitz, who's now actually at the University of Miami.
That's right. Yeah, Jody and Bettina are both not too far from me.
Bettina Musamelli, violin faculty there as well. And then Jean-Michel Fontenot, who is my past cello instructor at San Francisco Conservatory, Jennifer Culp. Most inspired musical hero of any genre?
Ooh, that's tough. Right now, I gotta give it to Hilary Hahn.
Oh.
She's been cranking it out. I mean, even before the pandemic, she's been such an open book. she's been so real with life as a soloist and how exhausting it is. And she just like walked away for a whole year without performing. And of course, like kind of bad timing because then she got even more time without performing because of Corona. But she's just been like writing about her practice journey in great details and really humanizing herself, because she's had more moments than I can count of just unbelievable technical and musical proficiency and just like unattainable talent. So for her to be like so open writing about how like, God, yeah, I'm just not feeling good about this today, or I just don't feel like practicing today, I'm just gonna do some scales or something, or straight up just like talking about how life is exhausting. She has a family, she has 2 kids now, she wants to spend more time with them, and so she's gonna do it. And of course that comes from a certain place of privilege because she's been successful for all of these years now, but still I see that and I'm like, wow, I both want to work harder because of that, but also I want to work smarter because of that.
Yes.
Gotta hand it to her.
Cool. Most transformative performance experience?
Ooh, that's tough too. It's gonna have to be, I was subbing at New World, but at that point I was already like gonna be a fellow. So it was the last concert of 2017-2018 season, and MTT was conducting Mahler 9. Love that symphony so much. And also being with MTT, who's like this amazing Mahler scholar and interpreter and all around, like, love the guy. It was an amazing performance, and I was sitting at the very back of the second violins, and we were sitting antiphonally, so I was on the wrong side of the stage or whatever, but I was just like, there was a moment in the last movement, the slow movement, where he stopped us during a rehearsal and was like, this is the kind of music where you want to really enjoy the moment, and I want you to like look at a friend across the stage or something when you get to this moment or whatever. And we got to that moment, and I was just like looking like 75 feet across the stage to my really good friend who's sitting in the back of the first violins, and we just got to this moment, and it was just like chills.
What a way to like make that so intimate, though, because we don't normally look that far across our section in an orchestra, right? But that's like a genius way of connecting the orchestra even further in a musician way of playing music together, literally across distance, And
it was so genuine. And it was on camera too, and like, it was like filmed for one of those wallcast concerts, but still, it's like it reminds you of like those times, not that, this orchestra is like the Berlin Philharmonic or whatever, but when you look at one of those videos and you see like entire sections moving together or something like that, and you're thinking maybe that's where that comes from. They're just like known moments in the music where you just like have a really nice connection with someone across the stage, and that's, whether it's self-indulgent or whatever you want to call it, I think that does translate to whoever's watching, but also to everybody on stage. I mean, it just like raises the level.
Yeah,
that was a cool moment, one I still have not forgotten about.
Yeah. Next piece you'd like to learn?
Oh my God, just anything in orchestra, I just I just want to be back in a full orchestra. But no, I want to learn Beethoven 59 too. That's a great piece. That's one I've been sort of...
Okay, call me up. I'll play it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go to you, because I don't want to be in Miami this summer. It's too hot. But seriously, and I've been listening to Belcea
I don't
Quartet?
know.
I don't know either. The Belcea Quartet. I've been listening to their recording, and like, they're amazing. I didn't know about them until recently. They're incredible.
Yeah.
Very inspiring. I mean, just like the way they play quiet dynamics, I'm just like obsessed with it.
And there's a lot of moments in that quartet to do so as well. In true Beethoven form, it's all about the extremes of dynamics. So
you bet.
Yeah.
What an absolute thriller.
Totally. Well, Michael, you made it through the Spitfire questions. Congratulations.
We did it, Joe.
All right. Michael, can you walk us through your musical origin story? How did you get a fiddle in your hand? When did you decide to become a professional musician? And walk us through to where you are today.
Wow. All right. So we're in the 3rd grade, 8 years old, and it's show and tell day. Someone walks in with a cello and plays probably like the first movement of the first Bach suite. And this guy, like, he was a pretty close friend of mine. He like literally didn't even know how to go to the bathroom by himself yet. And he was 8 years old. old. He was a real nerd, like a real kind of dweeb. And I remember like listening to him and being like, that is so moving. That's so moving. And I just remember like looking around the room and everybody was mesmerized. And I went home that day and I was like, Mom, I kind of want to play the cello. And they were like, you don't want to play the cello. We don't want to buy you a cello. Like we know how short your attention span is. So we're just not going to do that. We do, however, have a 3/4 sized violin up in the closet.
What?
And I was like, you never told me that. And they were like, oh yeah, your dad used to play in middle school. And so your grandparents bought him a violin and then he gave up. But yeah, we have a violin in our closet. I was like, oh wow, I want to try that. So I climbed up in their closet, got the violin. Obviously, I'm sure you remember what it was like picking up a cello for the first time and trying to like get any sound of it. It's not natural. And like picking up a violin and trying to make sound out of a violin is simply not natural. So anyway, I was 8 years old. Violin was in terrible shape. The bow had like no hair. And then 3 years later, finally, I got to have my first violin lesson. We finally found like an opportunity to get a teacher. And it was at the Marlborough School for Girls co-ed summer camp. I know, a little strange. But yeah, I was in the 6th grade and it was like a 30-minute lesson 5 days a week at this summer camp, which in reality was great. That's sort of a good thing to have when you're first starting. Just like a little bit each day. You don't need to practice. You don't need to work on much stuff. You know, it's just like having like guardrails for your first few months of playing or whatever. And I really enjoyed it. I wasn't good, obviously, because who is good after 6 weeks of violin playing? I really enjoyed it. Got to middle school and I was like, I really like music. Kind of fun. Like between, you know, having my mixtapes of classic rock on my Sony Walkman and also like listening to Itzhak Perlman for the first time. I was kind of like, oh wow, I kind of like violin or whatever. And so I like, you know, started to like make my way through the ranks of like my little public middle school music program or whatever. And I was like in the advanced orchestra and it was all exciting for me. And then I took the plunge and went to an arts high school because I was like, I kind of want to see where this goes, you know, like I kind of want to see, you know, if this is sort of right for me. And when I got to arts high school, it was amazing. There were weird people like me, and there were serious people, and there were people who were way better than I was. And then I started to go to the music camps, like the BUTI, the Boston University Tanglewood Institute, and like Meadowmount for 2 summers. At some point there, you know, whether it was like playing my first Mahler symphony or like playing my first full string quartet or something, I was kind of like, this feels right. But I was also really like late in the game. Like I started when I was 11 and a lot of people start when they're like 3 to 6 or something. Right. And so like I was still at that point studying with my very first violin teacher, and he didn't necessarily know what would be good for me at the college level, but I was definitely thinking about like going to conservatory or music school or something like that. I ended up going to San Francisco Conservatory where we met my teacher who's concertmaster of the San Francisco Symphony. I was just like blown away by him. I was like, oh my God, I want to be you. It took me a long time to sort of be like, hey, he's your teacher. Maybe you should stop putting him on this exalted pedestal and just like work harder. Yeah, then I did my master's in Cleveland at the Cleveland Institute of Music, which was very different. Life in Cleveland is very different than life in San Francisco. Life at CIM is very different from life at SFCM. But I think change is good for every musician. You spend too much time at a place and you can get sort of complacent, or you get a little too comfortable with the way things work, and then it's time to like move on to somewhere else and you're just like, what? But you know, it was good. And then graduated from CIM and then didn't really have anything until November 2017. I joined Lincoln Center Stage, which is a piano quintet where you perform on cruise ships. Right. That was interesting for sure. You do contracts that are like 4 or 5 months long. And I got to do a contract in the Caribbean, which was, of course, like, I mean, what do you want me to say? It's amazing.
Yeah, like
every single day, it's just like, oh yeah, I'm in a private island in the Bahamas today.
Right.
Oh yeah, we played Brahms quintet, and then the next day it's like you show up in like Turks and Caicos, and you're just like drinking rum on the beach in the morning.
Yeah, like life could be a lot worse. Yeah.
Oh my God, it was incredible. Yeah, and then I did another contract in Alaska, which is of course very, very different, but I really fell in love with hiking there. We would do these incredible day hikes and then, make it back to the ship and then take a really quick shower, throw on a suit, play a few scales, and then go and play 3 concerts.
Yeah.
3 45-minute long concerts. Sometimes we'd have to play like Schumann Quintet or like Dvorak American String Quartet or something like that. And it was just overall, it was a really nice experience. It was a real test because you spend 4 months with the same 5 people in your group. Hopefully nothing bad happens. And you also live unit to unit right next to each other. And you can get really sick of people, and you can also have the best times of your life with these people. And being in a quartet, you see these people every day, you work with these people every day, and sometimes something happens between you and another member of the group, and it's just like the worst because you're in this vacuum. And it's sort of like a crash course in diplomacy, because you can't go scorched earth. Yeah, you can't avoid them, but you also can't go like scorched earth on someone, because you've got to then play 3 concerts a night, or like you've got to spend the next 17 weeks with this person or whatever. And it's a good thing to learn how to do, especially I have aspirations of being in an orchestra, and chances are I'm going to have like the same 1 or 2 stand partners, if I get a job and like tenure in an orchestra. So that, and like playing whatever we wanted with chamber music and like all the different genres and stuff like that, it was really cool. Plus, great way to like get ahead financially.
Right, of course.
You're not paying rent, you don't need to pay for food, and drinks cost anywhere from $1.10 to $3.30. It was pretty cool. So I always wanted to come to New World. Ever since like Doug Kwan and like Autumn, they used to sub with New World back when we were all at school together. And I always was just like, that sounds really cool, getting to go to Miami Beach and like playing with an orchestra or whatever. So I wanted to make that happen. And like I had been on the sub list for some time, but I wanted to like be here. And unfortunately the auditions were happening while I was on a cruise, and it's sort of difficult to like leave the ship. Whole lot of lucky things happen. I was able to leave the ship. So I was in the Dominican Republic, casual, and New World was having an audition in Miami, so I could just like leave the ship for a day, flew back to Miami, stayed there for a night, had my audition, sprinted to the airport, and then got on a plane to San Juan, Puerto Rico, where I caught the ship. Had my audition, got in, and here I am now.
That's nuts. That's wild. Congratulations, by the way.
I mean, I love to stress myself out. I really do. Especially with like flights and stuff like that. Like, I think if this were like an Olympic sport, it would be like...
You get the gold medal.
I would get the gold medal for tight flying situations.
Yeah.
Or I've done a lot with flights that raises a lot of eyebrows, for sure. Yeah, now I'm in my 3rd season here, and like we were talking about earlier, it's like if we were talking with our scared young selves when we first got to SFCM in 2011, and we were saying like, this is where we're at now, I'd be pretty happy. I think you'd be pretty happy too. Like
I have a cat now. I'm happy.
We have a cat. We got dogs in the house.
Yeah.
It's a good time,
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here, and I also just like, I want more, and I can't wait for auditions to start happening again, because
that must have been the biggest blow for you to experience during the pandemic.
A little bit. I mean, in a way, I was burnt out. I really needed some time to like sleep in and only play an hour a day, or like a half hour a day, But now I'm kind of like, all right, how do we manufacture some productivity? How do we get to a place where it's like, I have a sense of purpose? And I'm sure it's great for you because like your quartet is playing more, and you're going through some more music. And like here, I'm grateful because New World's a place that will sort of facilitate whatever we want. Like, it's not just like, we want you to get an orchestra job. I mean, sure, they want me to get an orchestra job. I want me to get an orchestra job, but also So if I have an idea, they'll put it together. Sort of no questions asked. I mean, so I started a COVID quartet that, I'm looking forward to like playing with again this summer when I'm back home. And we put together a recital back in November. And I was like, hey guys, do you want to come to Miami and play a concert with like a couple of New World fellows? And we'll do like sextets and we'll do like great music. And they were like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then I talked with New World people and they were like, yeah, we can make that happen. And I was like, all right, so I'm ready to buy your flights, everybody. And they were like,
what?
Oh, this is really happening. Okay. It happened. And yeah, we put together like the Brahms G Major Sextet and Tchaikovsky Souvenir de Florence for like a live video audience with no actual audience there, which is disappointing considering like both of those pieces, you sort of want the audience reaction a little bit. But generally, I'm feeling really lucky to be in a place that will like facilitate whatever. It's like this incubator for classical music. So that's where I'm at now.
Yeah. It sounds like you're turning lemons into lemonade at the New World Symphony. It sounds also as if the organization is trying to support all its musicians in the best that it can at the current moment, rather than sort of pulling the ripcord on you guys, which is really great.
Definitely. It's also sort of a testament that most classical musicians are workaholics a little bit. Do you sort of feel that way?
Yes.
It's like, I want to feel like I'm practicing and hanging on by a thread, barely learning all of this stuff, and then somehow throwing it together. What's with all this time? Like, what's with all this, like, extra rest? It's like I'm going crazy here or something like that.
Right.
Maybe we've been conditioned to operate like this, but it's strange.
Since we both like hiking, I think of it like a hike. There's a mountain of repertoire to learn in whatever direction we want to go, chamber music, orchestral, solo, and we just want to keep climbing that mountain. And yeah, we can sit on a bench and look at the view for a second, but we still want to keep going. That's how I see it.
Yeah, but right now it's snowing and sleeting and there are avalanches and stuff like that, and so we can't keep going up to the top.
I suppose.
Or we can, but it's just like
Well, we're trying our best. These are trying times for sure. On that note, shall we take a break?
All right, let's do that.
Okay, we'll be right back. Welcome back from the break. So before the break, we were just ramping ourselves up to talk about food. I know, I'm really excited to talk about food because I know how much we are both foodies and that we have a shared geographic origin of where we began to enjoy food so much. We both are from Southern California. You're from LA, I'm from San Diego, right? So already we grew up with the best Mexican food in the country. And I'm putting out there just specifically as a San Diegan, we have the best Mexican food. And Tex-Mex is different than Californian Mexican. And they're both different and different animals and beasts. But anyway, just start telling me about how you got into food or what is it about food that inspires you? I mean,
there's so much.
I know. I feel like I'm asking the dumb questions here. Like it's in the obvious, but...
Oh man. I mean, there's just like so many places to start. Like, first of all, God, it's like the Tex-Mex versus what I guess they call Baja Mexican food, which is something I had never heard of. We just call it Mexican food. They call it Tex-Mex. Like, they are the ones who want to be different or whatever. Like, we're just kind of like, this is what we know.
Yeah.
This is what we love.
Yeah.
I don't really care. This is great.
Yeah.
How did I start loving food? God, I don't know. I mean, my dad, he and I would do pretty crazy things to get a good meal. It's really anything for like, that scene in Ratatouille when Antoine Ego tries the rat's ratatouille and he's like taken back to his childhood.
Yes.
And, he has just this moment of like bliss. I strive to feel that way a lot. Always looking for that perfect taco. I'm always looking for that perfect pizza or like that perfect slice of pizza or something. And I'm pretty intense about it. There were moments I was at the National Orchestral Institute in 2013, and that's in College Park, Maryland. Didn't have my driver's license yet, but I sort of realized like, hey, we're actually pretty close to Philadelphia, where at the time, my favorite slice of pizza on the planet was. It was this Lorenzo and Sons Pizzeria on South Street. So I convinced Serena, with whom we went to SFCM, to get a Zipcar membership to drive me and another friend of ours to Philadelphia from College Park, which probably took like 3, maybe 4 hours, just to go get pizza.
Yeah.
And some Philly cheesesteaks too. But it was like we spent all that time in the car. And by the way, like traffic in that part of the country honestly gives Southern California a real run for its money. It's horrible. Like it is truly some of the worst things I've ever seen. And this is just like an example of like how I'm really intense about food. But the real boiling point was when I went to New York in May of 2019. Pre-pandemic, baby. So New World was finishing their season at Carnegie Hall. It was amazing. And then I was going to be starting a cruise ship contract in the middle of May. And before the cruise ship contract, we rehearsed in New York for 2 weeks to like get all of the programs together and like get our wardrobes and just like get off on the right foot. Mm-hmm. So I had 18 days in New York. And at some point I decided I'm going to try a different slice of pizza or a different pizza every single one of these days.
Wow, okay.
So that meant pizza every single day for 18 days. And that also sometimes meant 2 pizzas some days. Like there were days when I'm like, all right, well, I know I'm having pizza for dinner, but I also might have pizza for lunch because it's really easy. And my body hated me for it. Right. Hated me for it. Well, absolutely hated me.
My health teacher used to call pizzas heart attack pies. So
it's pretty true. I mean, luckily, like I kept it at just like cheese slices, you know, it wasn't the big greasy meat, you know, every single day.
You were a pioneer in New York City for 18 days, scouring for the best New York sliced cheese pizza. Did you come to a conclusion? And this is all scientific, so for science and for research, for everything.
Of course, yeah. This is entirely all for science.
It's
you know,
selfless. Yeah.
I didn't come to any conclusions. I was just there along for the ride, you know, and I honestly didn't feel like I had that perfect slice of pizza. I mean, I wish I could describe, I actually probably could describe what I would want in my perfect slice of pizza, but I did a lot of research. I made a point of going to a lot of different neighborhoods. Tried to do like 18 different neighborhoods for the most part. But man, I had some good pizza. Yeah. That was so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was all just like, okay, anytime a musician goes to New York, there's dozens of people that they just like gotta see because New York is the hub for American classical music and everything. So it was always like, okay, I'll see you tonight and we'll go to this pizza place or we'll be in this neighborhood or whatever because I've got the thing. I've got to be able to do this.
Right.
Like you've got to be able to allow me to have this opportunity. Yeah. And I love that. And, you know, for me, going out and eating, I really enjoy it. And it, you know, it has been disappointing during the pandemic because like I don't really feel like it's necessary to like go out and eat at a restaurant. It's definitely super important to like support small businesses and support restaurants and stuff like that and like get stuff to go. But I definitely do miss the feeling of like either going out to a restaurant alone and just like, you know, having my personal pizza and beer or whatever and just like not talking to anybody. And I also miss going out with like a big group of people and trying all these things on the menu and just like knowing what to order and just being like, okay, we're eating at this, do you want this or do you want this, this? Okay, great. Mm-hmm. And that's my favorite way to spend time with people. When there's good food, good drinks at a place,
good company.
You know, great company. Yep. Nothing better than a dinner party, whether it's at home or it's out at a great restaurant or something like that. Like it feels so comforting.
Yeah, well, and it reminds me so much of a concert in a way, too. I mean, that's what we do as musicians, is we try to bring our community together. And food is just another vehicle to do so rather than a performance.
Yeah.
It's one that everyone can enjoy. Like my mom would always say when I was a kid, good food, good mood. And she's not wrong. So
it's true. Especially like with like the creation of like Chef's Table and of course like Jiro Dreams of Sushi and like, you know, all these shows that are coming out. And it's really applicable to what we do.
Yes.
Like there was a particular Chef's Table episode with Nancy Silverton. Mm-hmm. She was talking about how there's plenty of pizza in the world. I just want to do my own very good take on what I believe a pizza should taste like. And it's like, hello? How many times have we played a Beethoven symphony or like a Beethoven sonata or something like that? How many recordings are there of all of these pieces? And it's like, I love this music. I love the fact that this exists and I want my own personal take on it.
Right.
It's
Absolutely.
like, God, that was so like validating and reassuring. You know, people might get sick of certain pieces, you know, and we should be doing more to like prop up those repressed voices and stuff like that, for sure.
But may I use your analogy of eating a slice of New York pizza at least once a day for 18 days and how you said your body was not okay with it? It's the same thing. Like if we saturate ourselves with just one composer, you know, we don't want to hear that every day. That's like an earworm. That's something that we want variety in our music and we want variety in our food.
Well said.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to say
honestly,
something on top of that.
No, I mean, that well done.
Have you gone to Nancy Silverton's pizzeria in Los Angeles?
Of course.
I've never been.
Great.
Is it good? Okay.
It's not like the best pizza I've ever had, you know, but it is a good pizza. You know, when you're not just going for like a margarita or whatever, like when you're going for like one of those more specialty bourgeoisie pizzas or whatever, you know, with like
you're going to cut it with a fork and knife kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you know, there's like burrata and like an egg or something like that.
Right.
And, you know, it's like things that would make Italians mad probably. But at the same time, it's just like, that's your own take and that's your own spin and that's your, you know, what you grew up with. And I love food. I really do. And you know, especially like the cheap low-key eats, like the Bourdain style places where, you know, it's just like frills are great, fancy, great, whatever, but also I just want a good experience.
Yeah, I mean, that leads me to one of my questions for you. How do you search for a place to explore and try new cuisines or restaurants? Is it word of mouth? Is it Google search? Yeah, what do you do?
Everything. I mean, it's seriously like, and a lot of it is just like serendipity too. I mean, I remember when I first got to SFCM, my dad and we were walking around San Francisco. Like, yeah, I think at that point I was having like a really hard time adjusting to life on my own and like life with a roommate and life in college. And so, you know, we were just like walking around and we stumbled across two places in the Tenderloin that became absolute staples. Once a week, consistently throughout my entire undergrad. It was Lahore Karahi for Indian food and Saigon Sandwich. And
why did I go with you ever? What am I doing wrong in my time?
Did you never go to these places?
No. I'm scared of the Tenderloin, frankly.
Well, I mean, yeah, and especially like, you know, as a lady, walking through the Tenderloin alone, especially at night, does not sound fun.
No, it's
even for me, I was kind of just like, is this it? But we saw these places and there was something about it where we were just like, these could be really, really good places. And Saigon Sandwich was incredible. Lahore Karahi is still the best Indian food I've ever had in my life, and it's not close. So Saigon Sandwich, it was just like this really small hole in the wall. Banh mi's were $3.75 a sandwich, and that's all you need. You know, it's just like 5-spice chicken with like the mayo and the hoisin sauce and like the carrots and the daikon radishes and the jalapeno slices. And what more could you possibly ask for? Exactly. Especially when you're like living in the most expensive city in the country and paying to go to a conservatory. That's why you busk. You could literally go up and pay in like the small change that you get or whatever. And then Lahore, it was just like such quality food, and it was also BYOB. So you could just pull up there with like a good local beer or like some wine or whatever and order enough food for like 5 people and get out of there for like $14 a person or whatever and feel like overwhelmingly full.
I need to go back in time, Michael. We need to go back in time and hang out a lot more in San Francisco. Like, why didn't we hang out?
Yeah.
Or not why didn't we hang out? Why didn't we have food together all the time?
We definitely should have. In hindsight, I'm kind of just like, you know, the experience could have been a whole lot better, you know, with people who were like just as down.
Yes, right.
And like we did have a lot of overlap in places that we went. Like we went to Santung all the time.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Their chicken wings.
And like Marnie Thai, you know, another place. And you lived right in the inner Sunset, which is just no fair because like you had that. That was your local Thai place.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And also we were super blessed because like even in Hayes Valley, it was like you had
so many
Arlequin.
Of those places are closed now though. That's the only problem.
And like Lero, I don't know how
That's
to
the
pronounce.
Thai place as well. Yep, right across from Davies Symphony Hall.
Really, really quality stuff.
Yeah.
Really, really good. And not terribly expensive either.
I feel very spoiled in general. Just living in California, so much good food.
Yeah.
So everything is fresh. All the produce is fresh. All the seafood is fresh. And then when you go across the country, there's different pros and cons, right? I mean, like in Texas, there is Tex-Mex. For me, when I lived in Houston, there's barbecue, there's burgers and American, style food. And also in Houston, there's a lot of Vietnamese food as well, actually. That's quite good and some really good ramen. And then in the Twin Cities, there's really good Vietnamese here and a lot of other scatterings of things. But yeah, geographically speaking, California has really best of the best. Yeah, it's really got it all. And that also kind of leads
it's also got competition.
Yes, which sucks for them, but is good for us.
Oh, it's so great.
Capitalism at its best,
Those Friday evenings from 6 to 6:30 at 19th and Judah were the best times of 2014 to 2015 for me. I'm sure you went there a lot more than I did.
No, I didn't actually. I didn't. But this reminds me of on Autumn Chodorowski's episode, we actually talked about
taco shop at Underdogs.
At Underdogs, yes. So there was this window from 6 to 6:30 where you can get $1 margaritas and just like $3 tacos or something, really reduced,
and $2 tecates.
Right.
It was a circus disaster because 30 minutes nonstop Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville playing on loop.
Right.
And you have all the bartenders, all the waiters and waitresses are just like walking around with an ice pail and a pitcher full of margaritas. They're just like topping you up. Somehow they're able to keep track of how many drinks each person had, which is crazy.
Yeah.
One time I had 9.
How'd you know? You just kept going?
Well, it was a sort of a competition. But do you know Ephraim? He and I went. This was like after all my grad school auditions were done. He was like, "Yeah, I can drink a lot."
Oh
whatever.
no, it became a
yeah. Like I want to see you actually like try and drink. And I was like, I mean, okay, whatever. We kept a little tally on napkins or whatever. I don't know, maybe he let me win, but I did win. And then I lived in the outer Sunset off the L, so I had to take the 29 back.
Right.
The fact that I made it home, it was a miracle.
Yeah, with all the bus, yeah.
I mean, it's just, I'm glad it happened early.
Yeah.
I was able to recover all day.
I wanted to ask you, and I feel like this is like a Sophie's Choice situation. What is your favorite cuisine?
That is a really difficult question to ask.
I couldn't answer it. I could answer it by narrowing it down to like a particular kind of region.
Whenever I leave California, and especially when I leave Southern California, I miss Korean food more than anything else.
Interesting.
I really do.
But that makes sense. LA has a huge Korean barbecue, like Koreatown. I mean, really.
Yeah.
And it is fantastic. I have to say, I'm not really a fan of Korean food, and everyone is like mad at me when I say that.
I get it.
No, but I understand though. Like if it's in LA, yes. But for me, outside of it, I'm just like, I'd rather have Chinese. I'd rather have Japanese.
Oh, I completely agree. Okay. I mean, it's just like, why would you?
The other thing too is I also don't eat red meat, so I think that limits me when it comes to cream of barbecue. I get chicken, but it's not quite the same.
Yeah. And I don't eat pork, but I imagine like the pork dishes are also crazy good. When I leave LA, and because this is not controversial to say, LA's Koreatown is untouchable. People in New York like to say like, our Koreatown's so good. Like, what does LA Koreatown have that we don't? And it's like, LA Koreatown is maybe the size of Manhattan.
Right? Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to speak for Korean people, but most of the Korean people I talk to say, you go to LA Koreatown, you experience things there that it's simply, you don't find that outside of Korea.
Right.
What are you going to say? What I've been told is that it's pretty elite.
I mean, so we're just spoiled again. I went to USC, so Koreatown was in my backyard, and it's
right there. But yeah, even more than pizza, even more than tacos and burritos and stuff like that, I really struggle being away from Koreatown.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I'm in a situation like yours, because I would say for me, you can't take Mexican food away from me. That is my like soul food growing up. When I am transported to another city that does not have a huge, vibrant scene, for me, I'm sorry to say, there are some really good Mexican places in the Twin Cities, but it's not ever going to be the same. I know I grew up with a particular taste profile, and I have a vision for like what that is. So for me, I try my best to recreate that vision. Do you try similar things for you when you're lacking in? Yeah. Okay. So what things have you successfully been able to recreate?
last year, Ari Lipschick, she
Hi, Ari.
posted something on her Instagram of the New York Times how to recreate a Mission style burrito. Simple as that. I was just like, I'm gonna work with that. That seems doable for me. And it's like it's enough for me to be like, okay, this was fine. This sort of satisfied some craving or whatever. But I'll do the same with Korean food, with drunken noodles, with Korean food. Like I'll cook dakgalbi, which it's like a spicy marinated chicken with like rice cakes and perilla leaves and sweet potatoes and stuff like that on a cast iron or something like that. It's delicious. It's so good. But there are certain things where I'm just like, I'm not going to go out and spend money on an inadequate product.
Yes.
Like, I'm just not going to do that.
Right.
And I'm also not going to spend $4 on a mediocre taco.
Right.
That's just not going to happen. That's out of the question. And this sparked a lot of controversy when I lived in Cleveland because people in Cleveland, they like to go to this place called Barrio. And that in itself was already like a little bit of like cultural appropriation and just like, what does that mean? Like, what Barrio? Like, so they had like, these Coca-Cola braised carne asada tacos with like mayonnaise and like pineapple slaw or something like that. And God, I'm just like getting all riled up thinking about it. So
that sounds like
I'm having to bring myself down. Breathe.
Yeah,
breathe for a second. Okay. So
people liked it,
I
obviously.
just moved to Cleveland, and people were talking about this like Mexican food that's like not that bad, and I was like,
that's clue number 1, not that bad.
So, my God, I just moved there. I really didn't want to be that guy who was like, yeah, this isn't as good as something you could get in California, but this place was so repulsive that I had like one bite of this taco, and whatever that experience was that Antoine Ego had in that scene in Ratatouille, this was the exact opposite. This was basically just like, I'm going to throw my taco down in rage.
Yes.
And, it was like, you can add all these fixing
how dare you?
tacos.
Yeah.
You add meat. You add salsa. You add onions and cilantro. And if you feel like adding more lime or a radish or like, some pickled carrots or jalapenos or whatever, do you, but like...
corn tortilla too.
And it was on a flour tortilla.
No!
And now, so flour tortillas, when done right, fine. If you could do it in a convincing way, like there are a couple places in LA right now that are really flying with the flour tortilla tacos. Like there's Sonora Town in downtown, and then there's this truck called El Russo in Boyle Heights, East LA that's really, really good.
Oh, okay.
And they're flour, like Sonoran style flour tortillas, and they're like really doughy and delicious. I miss them. But I was really repulsed by this place, Barrio. And it was like this 2-year-long struggle where people would just be like, let's just go to Barrio and get margaritas or something. And I was like, no, I'm not giving that place any of my hard-earned money.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. Sorry to anybody who's listening right now who enjoys going to Barrio or whatever, like Gabby Skinner, you're probably going to be listening right now. And you're going to be thinking, I didn't think Barrio was that bad. And I think you're wrong. I'm sorry. This is going to be like the falling off point for some people. We're going to lose a lot of listeners at some point, For the passionate fans of Hiding Behind the Music Stand who also love Barrio, leave.
No!
I'm sorry.
No, don't leave. Just go and get yourself a really authentic taco. Like, just take a trip to Southern California.
Even I don't even have to be there. Like, I also pride myself in being a very good vicarious tour guide.
Yes.
I can be that source of just like, okay, if you're here, go here. If you're here, go here. If you're here, just avoid that area. But if you're here, go here. Like, I will be that guy.
This is inspiring me to say, Michael, we should take a foodcation together.
I will destroy it. Because I'm pretty like type A. If I'm going to a place or if I'm setting my sights on like a food tour, I'm going all in. It's going to be like nice. It's going to be dollar tacos. It's going to be like whatever. I commit.
You're serious.
I commit. And like, I'll even like schedule hikes or like runs, just so I can have like the extra room.
That's not
like,
even... In all your searching and discovery of food and being a foodie, how does that relate to your musicianship?
Man, that's a great question. It's a bit of an outlet. It's kind of like something completely different, especially at a place like New World where you live and work with everybody at all times, it's nice to not be thinking about music or thinking about other colleagues or whatever, or like thinking about like what just happened in a rehearsal or whatever. It's nice to just be like, oh yeah, this chef was talking about that, yeah, or like this restaurant is so good, or I can't wait to try something else. You know, it's just like separate. I mean, it sort of dictates like how I live my life a little bit, because I don't eat super healthy. I'm not gonna lie. I eat pizza a lot, and I eat like meat and potatoes and rice, and yeah, I'll have a salad every day or whatever, but I definitely eat a lot, and I enjoy that. I really, really do. And I know that in order to not get completely out of control, I need to like do something to mitigate that. So I try and like walk every day, or I try and like run a certain amount of times a week, or like, you know, I go on long bike rides or whatever. Like I do, you know, I do certain things so I can feel perfectly fine indulging having 5 slices of pizza and maybe some ice cream and maybe a few beers and
living your best life. I mean,
living
that
my
sounds
best
amazing.
life. Yeah, because it's all very harmonious, you know, because it's like, all right, you know, I'll go practice and then I'll have like a nice meal or whatever, and then go for a walk and like, you know, feel a little better about everything, and also like go outside and like maybe I'll look at the sunset or whatever. It's just like, you know, that is like a high functioning day in the life of Michael Turkell. Food, how it relates to music and being a musician, it's a nice way to like spruce up the, you know, sometimes very tedious way of being for like a musician who doesn't have tenure in an orchestra yet, and who doesn't have a whole lot in the way of job security. It's like, all right, you know, we get it done, we have something to look forward to, and we can process that in a healthy way or something like that. I don't know.
One other question that I was curious about, since you did all the cruise ships and stuff, what was the most adventurous cuisine or food that you had that you thought maybe going into it, I'm not sure if I'm going to like it, and then you're like, no, this is dope?
You're going to hate me. So I, Michael Turkell, don't eat things that swim.
Oh.
Or live in the water, really.
Really?
So I don't eat fish. I don't eat seafood, and, you know, or shellfish and stuff like that.
So much of my diet.
I know, and I wish I had it, because I feel like that would just open the floodgates for like so many more things.
But you're just not a fish person, or I don't get it. Like,
just not a fish person.
You just don't like fish.
Something about it.
Ooh, I want to convince you otherwise.
I know. Yeah. So I really do try to find the gateway, because that's really always been the trick for me, was like finding the gateway. Whether that's like finding the gateway for tomatoes or for vegetables or for things that are healthier, because I grew up with like pasta and pizza and fried chicken and stuff like that. Yeah. You won't live a very long life, I don't think, if that's your concentration. So spent 2 summers in Alaska. What do you got to do in Alaska? You got to have salmon.
You have to have the salmon.
You have to have salmon.
They have an
and
excellent
you
salmon.
also got to try like cod and rockfish and stuff like that. And I did. And you know what? It was good.
Good.
And I
there's
had
some of their
like,
smoked salmon is the best smoked salmon I've ever had.
It sets the standard. Yeah. And I mean, the crazy thing about being in Alaska is that, especially in like August, you go to like a creek or like a body of water, and it's literally entirely full of salmon doing their runs. And the salmon are like huge. Like some of them are like 5 feet long or something. Like I had no idea that they were so plentiful and so large. And just like the fact that they're able to like just swim around and then jump up these giant like waterfalls and creeks and stuff like that. And, you know, they have all these predators, and oh my God, it's unbelievable.
What a nuts fish. I know.
Absolutely crazy. And then they'll just, it's so cool. I didn't know I needed to see that in my life. And then I went to Alaska and saw like actual salmon runs, and I was like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I had fish, and I, you know, I had like fish. I had like a local IPA from this brewery that I started to really like in Juneau, Alaska, called Devil's Club Brewing Company. And I had some fish, and I posted about it, told my parents about it, and they were like, we're so proud of you. Oh my God. You know, it's still not regularly part of my diet or whatever. Like there will still be experiences where I'll like smell scallops or whatever and be like, oh, that's not for me. That's super not for me.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the most adventurous thing I did, I would say. way.
Well,
Which
I
sounds
am
so sad.
I am inspired to like change your mind about fish.
I'm
Because
gonna
there's
need to
so
do it.
many beautiful ways of making fish. Okay.
It's just so
We
yeah.
gotta hang out. It's just like
Yeah.
you
Because
have
it's
to come
been
here, or we have to go. I have to go there or something.
been 6 years or something, right?
I know.
Oh,
Too long. Well, anyway, can I ask you two final questions?
of course.
What, in your opinion, is the most common misconception of classical music and the classical music world?
That we're stupid.
Okay, I love this. Go on.
Yeah, especially for those of us who go to conservatory. You know, maybe it's like a generational thing, but I think a lot of people think that we're just like stupid musicians or like stupid lemmings or stuff like that. And, you know, we went to like a coloring book school or something like that. I think that couldn't be further from the truth because, first of all, we love what we do. And what we do involves a lot of thorough research, and it involves using a lot of different parts of our brain. So that's one thing. A second thing is that most of us who did classical music growing up or whatever, we also did really well in other subjects too, and could probably hold our own in plenty of other subjects, you know, if it came to that. I mean, there are people here at New World even who were sort of feeling disillusioned, you know, not having auditions to prepare for and not having music to prepare for every single week, who went and studied for the LSAT and scored in the 99th percentile.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we have crazy work ethics and we read a lot. We're constantly looking for inspiration. And, you know, I think maybe this narrative is a little more apparent at music schools that are part of a university. So it's like, you know, you go to Northwestern, which is, you know, maybe what, like the 7th best school in the country or something like that. It's just like, yeah, but you go here for music. And it's like, yeah, but I got into the school. And
right.
Yeah, but, you know, I still have to take these classes that other people take. And yeah, I'm also getting a degree from Northwestern.
Yeah, like you had to have a good enough GPA to even get into that school to begin with.
You did.
Yeah.
You really did. Even at Rice. Rice is a great academic school.
Yeah.
And to go to Rice, you have to be pretty smart and you have to be very, very good at something, you know, and maybe that something is music, but there are very few people who are classical musicians or even other musicians who are stupid because it's also just like such a subjective term.
I was about to just say, it's also how do we quantify what intelligence or stupidity is? We're brought up in this education system where we prioritize certain areas of intelligence as marked being intelligent. Like if you're not excellent at, like, let's say science or math or something, that doesn't mean that you're not a smart person. Like that just means that might not be your strength in however your brain chemistry works.
Yeah.
And I think there's a very streamlined view of how we qualify or quantify intelligence.
Yeah.
It's like, I think, a flawed view and system to begin with, because everyone has intelligence in ways that are even outside of academia.
You know, I think maybe it's just like a misconception that entertainers shouldn't have brains or whatever. Like entertainers should be there to entertain and then go backstage and never be heard from.
Right.
And I have a lot of feelings about that, you know, whether it's athletes or musicians or artists or whatever.
Stand-up comedians. Yeah.
Stand-up comedians, absolutely. We're always responding to the times and we're always adapting to things. And that is one of the more common misconceptions among our field is that, like, we went to conservatory, so we're probably not very smart. We're just like good musicians or whatever.
Right.
Like we're good, skilled individuals. And it's just like, well, no.
Thanks for bringing that up. I've been victim of that, or people have assumed that of me, and I get really upset because I'm like, I think I'm a little smarter than you think. Like,
yeah, it's not fair. Yeah, it's really.
I have some clever moments. Like, trust me.
Yeah, and it's like people bring some subject up or whatever. It's just like, you probably don't know anything about it. It's like, what?
Yeah, right.
I know a lot about that. Yeah.
All right. My second question, after all the impact that COVID has done to classical music, what do you think is something positive that will enhance and carry on in our profession?
Good question. You know, I think a lot of orchestras, a lot of ensembles were not prepared to lose audiences. COVID and all of the social justice initiatives, I don't think a lot of ensembles were prepared to reckon with either of these subjects, let alone both at the same time. I think a lot of arts organizations probably need to rethink and perhaps restructure how they they make money and how they sustain themselves. A lot of orchestras need to consider what it actually means to be an orchestra, which is a very old, antiquated art form, or, any chamber music ensemble, what it means to be that in the 21st century. And then also what it means to be that in America in the 21st century. And there's so much to say.
There's so much work to be done, really.
There's so much work to be done. Our bodies go crazy if we have pizza 18 days in a row. Our people are going crazy. The model was working, but also fading. There were a lot of orchestras that were struggling to fill their hall. It's like, why is that? I don't know. I'm not a CEO. It's above my pay grade to answer those questions. But at the same time, it's like, let's figure out what we can do differently. When we can all safely get back on stage together, it's like, all right, yeah, what is it that wasn't working? Why did we have so many empty seats in our hall? And why did so many more people show up? We have these wall casts, and there's like a 100-foot wall outside of our hall, and like thousands of people will show up to watch a concert for free and just like sit on the lawn, drink wine or whatever. And it's like, that sounds delightful.
Yeah, I would rather, sometimes there's pros and cons, right? Like you want to get that in-hall acoustic experience, but at the same time, you sacrifice any kind of leisure that you want to experience with a glass of wine or sitting in a blanket under the stars or whatever.
Just not feeling so fancy and feeling like so bourgeoisie, you know?
Yeah, we do need to reinvent the concert going experience for people and make it less about some kind of tiered status.
Classist.
Situation. Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot to say about this subject, but I also think that music education needs a big reckoning. We have this model in place right now that's you go to an undergrad for 4 years, you get a master's degree, and that's 2 years, maybe 3. But I just think that's such a waste of money. And
oh my gosh, don't even.
I know.
Oh this is coming from someone that did 10 years of schooling. Legit, straightforward. I was very lucky with my scholarships, so I didn't have to break the bank much. But I'm just saying, like, I went through a lot of schooling, and let me tell you, I think I gained a lot from that experience. Of course, I gained a lot, but I also think that there's something systemically that should not have been necessary for me to do.
And also, consider the people who are in school right now, who are in music school right now. What are you doing? What are you getting out of being in school right now? You're not getting to play an orchestra, which, sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. You're not getting to play in chamber music. You're not getting to play in studio class. You're not getting to play with your accompanist. You're not getting to play with, you're not getting to collaborate with pianists or other musicians. Like, you're missing so much of your critical, formative musical years, and you're still paying tuition, like full tuition for that. Yeah. I have a problem with that. That really doesn't sit well with me. But also, even not during a pandemic, I think about like the last semester of my undergrad and how I spent that year trying to get to a good grad school, so it was just like the whole year I was playing one concerto and 2 movements of Bach and the same Paganini caprice and maybe a sonata, and then maybe for a little bit I thought about my recital or whatever, but it's just like we waste time, so much in resources. We really set ourselves back, and for what? And then, it's like you get to a master's degree for 2 years. What can you possibly do in 2 years unless you're like ready to get that job or whatever, unless you've like figured it all out for yourself. But it's like, you go and set up in a new city, you go and set up with a new teacher or whatever, and you have 2 years to figure things out. It's like, that's not a lot of time. No. That's a lot of pressure. Yeah. I feel like there needs to be some shifting around a little bit. Whether it's like, I don't know, add another semester to a master's degree or something like that. And you figure out like the costs and, hopefully that won't break the bank. So, I have not put a lot of thought into this.
No, but I think you're bringing up a very good point of the structure of a stereotypical classical music career is that it begins really when you decide, usually in high school, that you want to go into music, and then you go into undergrad, and then you go into master's. And then if you're someone like me, you go and do 2 more degrees for some reasons, and then you do some other festivals or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost required that everyone gets an undergraduate. It's almost required again to get a master's. Yeah. And there's something in there that needs to be rehashed out. And I think that that's at least, we can't answer all the questions right now. And also it's above our pay grade as well, but we need to at least airing out that question and questioning it, I think is a really good start. That's why we're here.
Right. Yeah. I did think about this, and luckily it was never really asked. But I always wondered, in 2014, 15, when I was auditioning for master's programs and stuff like that, I never had an answer for the hypothetical question, so what do you get out of a master's degree? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. You get a new teacher.
Yeah.
maybe you get some more opportunities in your ensembles and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So, yeah, I think to answer your question, there are a lot of questions that music schools, conservatories, and arts organizations need to answer, about like, hey, maybe what's not working or what could be done a little more efficiently. And like, why are things just not getting better even without a global health crisis present? Don't know, but I think there are people who make X amount of money who could probably stand to get on that.
Obviously, this is like, I can see the slope down into conversation, and I want to keep it going, but this is
we've talked a lot.
This is definitely a good starting place for anyone listening. Let's question why we do the things that we do. Why do we do things the way we do them? Like, I think every now and then it's important to check in and see, is this relevant still? Is it something that...
Did this work? And does it still?
Well, anyway, Michael, are there any platforms or websites for listeners to learn more about you and any upcoming projects?
Maybe I'm old-fashioned or whatever. I don't even have a website. This is crazy. I just have my social media where I go from causes pertaining to social justice to memes to,
a lot of food and puppies.
A lot of food and puppies and, bike rides and sunsets and stuff like that. I had a concert on February 1st that was streamed to New World Symphony's Instagram page. We played Souvenir de Florence and Brahms's G Major Sextet, but that's really all I got, we just have like our subscription season that's ongoing right now, and I think some of these performances are streamed to New World Symphony's Facebook and YouTube live pages, but other than that, just like be a good citizen, I guess.
So New World's website is
nws.edu.
Great. And if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, go ahead and press that subscribe button and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. The reviews and ratings really help this podcast be more visible to others, and it's a free way to support the podcast. Another free way is to tell your friends and family about it, and you can always become part of the Haydn Behind the Music Stand family by donating to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Haydn Music Stand. Don't forget, there's a Spotify playlist available that contains all the pieces we've discussed on the podcast. It's a huge collection right now, but really don't be intimidated. It's really all great music. And the link is always in the description of each episode. Follow us on our social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at Haydn Music Stand. Michael, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's so great to reconnect and see that you're doing so well.
Patty, thank you so much for having me. This was such an honor and such a fun time, and I swear 3 hours has never gone by so quickly. Like, we talked about such cool, important things, and yes, we should hang out,
Yes!
Before another 6 years passes by.
Oh, seriously. And also, like, we need to grab food, have great drinks, great company, great music.
Next time at Underdogs. Yeah, Okay. No, I think we want our nights, to last longer than just that.
Than 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. 30 minutes and like a blackout 15 minutes later,
Right.
That's not ideal for a long, lengthy food tour.
No, not at all. But, I'm looking forward to the next time we can hang out in person.
It's going to be great.
Yeah. And thanks for listening. Say bye, Sushi. And with me is Michael But that was an okay one, right?
What it do? I love it.
I'll try. I don't think I can do a better one than I did the first one.